Doug Karsch, Scott Anderson, 97 The Ticket from the Allen Park headquarters of the Detroit Lions, the Meyer Performance Center. And we're proud at this time to be joined by the president of the Detroit Lions, Rod Wood. Thanks for being with us.
It's my pleasure.
And a lot of excitement around this team. And every day we're here, it's packed to the gills with fans.
Yeah, we've set an all-time record for training camp attendance, averaging about 2,800 per day. And we'll probably have 3,000 here today. We had that for the joint practices with Miami last week. So it's a great environment. The players get juiced by having the fans here, and it'll be an exciting day.
So how much of this are you responsible for when it comes to trying to organize and get a whole other football franchise to come up here and accommodate them?
Well, we start talking in the spring before the schedule comes out, and Dan will reach out to a couple teams and vice versa and talk about the idea of practicing and then playing against each other. And the league a couple years ago passed a resolution that every team can request and get one for sure. And then you can request a second, and if it works out schedule-wise, they'll try to accommodate you. So our first request was Miami, and we got that, and then the Houston one was able to work out this week. So thanks to the league for accommodating us, because we're going to get good work with the starters against their starters and not have to put them out there in a preseason game. So it's worked out great.
Okay, let's get into the deep end of the pool. Do you have any contract extension to announce with Aiden Hutchinson?
I have nothing to announce. And I wouldn't announce it if I did have something to announce until we're ready to say something officially. But we're working on stuff.
Will you come back and sit down with us and let us know when it's done?
If timing works, I would be happy to do that.
Because we're here until 2.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
All right,
So if it happens before then.
Don't hold your breath.
So one of the things we always get questions about from fans, seriously, is uniforms. And the rivalry uniforms is something the league has introduced this year. And am I correct in saying you guys will be part of that next year? Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah, next year the first 8 teams are going to be rolled out. My understanding is next week. So you'll get a look at what the league's thinking about. And we have an idea of what ours is going to look at. We've seen a couple of iterations of it. And I would say it's consistent with us, but a little bit of a modern twist to it. I think the fans will like it.
How has this ride been for you personally? Because when you were announced as the president of the Detroit Lions, I mean, I got to be honest with you. Everybody we would talk to is like, who's Rod Wood and what is this guy going to do? And does he have any football experience? And all we were given these one sheets and PR. And like, well, he's been with the family and the organization for a long time, but not necessarily the football side. But, I mean, now fans have to be coming up to you and going, hey, nice job. You're doing whatever it is that you do. You're doing a great job. But what's this ride been like over the last 5-6 years?
It's been great. There's obviously ups and downs, and the first couple of years we were close when Jim Caldwell was here and couldn't quite get over the hump. And then the several years that followed with Matt were tough. But I think you sometimes learn the most through things that don't work out, and I think that helped us really figure out what to do when we were looking for Dan and Brad. And that ride started off a little rocky too. And I think you had to be patient and give them a chance to build the team that they indicated they would build when we talked to them. And so the last couple of years have been a blast. Still not quite there, and you want to get over that hump. So it's been great, but a little frustrating the way the last 2 seasons end, and hopefully this year is the year we can push through.
Was there a moment when you realized it just clicked for you, like, we got it right with these guys early on when maybe they weren't winning games like you were hoping to, but you just, what, we got the right guys because you'd gone through the previous regimes? I
think early on, there was no finger pointing, there was no blaming, there was nobody trying to take credit at someone else's expense, which is kind of what we wanted. We wanted a culture of everybody's in this together. And I would say the real moment that you started to feel like things were turning was after the 1-6 start, and we came out and won the next game, and then got on a little bit of a roll and came very close to making the playoffs after a 1-6 start. And that's when I thought, okay, we got this figured out, and we got the right guys, we got the right players, and the way we ended that season, the only 2 teams that were happy at the end of that season were probably the Chiefs, who won the Super Bowl, and us, who beat Green Bay on that last game.
Right.
And it's hard to end the season not making the playoffs, but feel like you had a win, and that was a very, very special night.
Okay, so you've mentioned previous regimes that you oversaw.
Yeah.
What is, when you watch Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes and their staffs, what is the secret to the sauce? What are they bringing to the table? If you could provide us an insight, a story, something that you get to see firsthand. That is why these guys have been able to build what they've been able to build so far.
Yeah, they're two great leaders, first of all, and they're great partners. And I think that, when you hire two guys at the same time who didn't know each other, and you put them together kind of in a forced marriage almost, you hope it works out. And they've embraced it. They still operate that way. And Dan doesn't make a decision without talking to Brad, and vice versa. Their staffs are amazing. I think they've both been able to attract great people. And even after we've lost people, because we've attracted great people. Brad lost a couple guys, Lance Newmark, Dave Sears. We backfilled behind them. We lost a number of our coaches. And I think people want to come here and work now because of the culture those two guys have created. And we're able to attract, I think, the best of the best. And I think while we lost coaches, we brought in great coaches right behind them. And so you see them behind the scenes with those guys and the energy, and people like each other. And people walk in our building and they just say, this feels different. I mean, this feels like everybody wants to be here, and wants to work together, and I can tell you that's not the way it feels at a lot of teams, and it's a very, very different environment. It's hard to I try to say culture, and everybody wants to have a great culture, but we've created it. And I told Brad the other day, I think we're one of the few teams now that teams will look at our players and say that's a Detroit Lion, or that's a Dan Campbell player. And when you start to have other teams identify the kind of guys that are on your team, I think you've started to figure it out.
12 years ago, did you think this was what you were going to be doing?
No, probably not. I never try to make 5-year or 10-year plans, and I tell people don't do that because you'll just get frustrated. I think the best you can do is do the current job you're in to the best of your ability, and when opportunity knocks, be ready to seize it and take advantage of it. And that's kind of what worked out here. And the biggest thing that I had was a relationship with the Ford family, and talking to peers around the league. My position has to be completely aligned with ownership and has to have a lot of confidence and trust back and forth. And I kind of had that. Hi, Rory. From the very beginning, which gave me a huge advantage.
So, as best you can answer this question, what we get from fans, some fans, is they need to make a bigger move. They need to go get Micah Parsons. They need to go get Trey Hendrickson. It's obviously far more complicated than just go get them, but what do you say to the fans that say they think the Lions are afraid to make that big move?
Oh, we're not afraid to make a big move. We're trying to make sure that we can keep the nucleus of this team together, and not put any of that at risk by going to make a move that you bring in some other player that may have a big name, might be a great player, but that's going to disrupt what we've got here and our plans for the future. And we've got a lot of young guys who are on their rookie contract who are going to be up for big extensions, and we've been planning for that for years. And you have to save money, and you have to save cap space for it. And we probably have 5 or 6 guys that are amongst the best at their position. And I don't know that another team has that, and we're trying to prepare to keep all those guys with us.
We've talked about that, and then the fan will say to us, forget that. Let's win the Super Bowl now. And I'm like, you can maybe try and go all in. Are you sure you want to do that? So how would you answer that when a fan says that to us?
Well, I feel, candidly, like we are all in with the team that we have. And the team that we have, has been developed largely through the draft, but we've augmented it. Bringing in Reed at corner, bringing in Reeder last year. Those were big moves. And, we got some guys that we brought in this year that were not big-ticket players, but they're going to help us. Ray Lopez is going to help us.
Right.
Zach Cunningham is going to help us. And those are not big-name players, but they're depth behind guys that are great starters that we're going to need at some point. So I think we are all in, and I think we're all in with the coaching staff that we went out and got. And I just tell the fans, give us a chance to show what we are when we get on the field.
Speaking of the draft, an amazing undertaking to get the draft here in Detroit, and how you guys pulled it off. It was amazing.
Yeah.
The talk of the league for years. How was that experience for you going through all of that? And then when it was all said and done, how many different teams have come to you and said, okay, we're hosting it next year. We're hosting it 2 years down the road. Help us to make it a great event like you guys did.
It was awesome. It was a process to win it because it's a competitive bidding process against other cities who want to have the draft. And we had candidly struck out a couple times, but finally when we had the bid and won, I think it was a great example of the whole city area coming together to put on a show for the world. And it was one of the first opportunities, I think, for people who have not been to Detroit for a long time, or maybe had never been to Detroit, to see it on TV, to say, wow, that's not the Detroit I heard of. And I think that was the biggest impact. The fans showed up in droves, obviously, attendance records every day. So other cities have asked for sure. How did you do that? And I think you can't replicate what we have here. I think, right now we have a city that's on the comeback. We were talking about, the sports and the Tigers going on right now, and there's just a vibe in Detroit that's you can't take to another city, I don't think. And I think coming off of the season that we had before, the fans were enthusiastic. They were showing up in Lions jerseys. What I tell every city is you have to do it your way. Don't try and do it Detroit's way. If you're going to have it in Pittsburgh next year, make it a Pittsburgh draft. I think Green Bay did a pretty good job, pulling it off this year. They didn't get quite to our attendance records. I kind of challenged them to do that, and they fell a little short, which is
hard
totally
to
fine.
do. Hard to do when you're in Green Bay. Yeah.
So I just think you have to make it authentic to your city is the best advice to give people.
All right, so Rob Wood, Lions president, with us here on 97.1 The Ticket. Fans going to games, what will they see that is new this year?
We've not too much in the stadium. We're going to continue to put on a great show. We've have a new club, the club that Delta has named, so people that are on the club level will have a new sponsor up there. We'll always have a few new concession ideas that people will see. But the stadium is everybody that comes in says, "Wow, this is still really cool." It has aged well. We've kept it modern with technology and Wi-Fi and the video boards. But the main thing they're going to see is a hell of a football team on the field, and create the home field advantage for us that I think is almost unique in the NFL. I mean, broadcast partners that come in here say, "I love to broadcast a game in Detroit because the energy, the volume of the fans is just incredible."
Usually we finish things up with kind of an oddball question. Your name is Rod Wood. How many times do people call you Ron Wood, and do they ask if you can play guitar for the Stones?
It's come up. I've heard Ron Wood. I've heard other iterations of it. I don't play guitar, and I don't play for the Stones. But people still pronounce it wrong sometimes, even when they think they know me. So, no, but right now it's Rod Wood, and I don't play guitar.
Excellent. Well, you're doing a great job.
Thank
the Lions are certainly the talk of the town and have been for a few years now, and let's hope it stays that way.
Well, and thanks for coming on. I just want to thank all our fans and Meyer for our sponsorship and Rocket Mortgage for helping put this on, and hopefully you guys have a great day here.
We're going to, and we appreciate you having us.
Yeah.
There
Thanks,
he is,
guys.
President of the Detroit Lions, Rob Wood, joining us here in Allen Park on 97.1 The Ticket.